Okay, so Paulo Fonseca has fully called out his Milan team in public, likening their performances to a roller coaster. Up today, who knows what happens tomorrow? Full of euphemisms, he compared his team's performances to a coin toss, simply waiting to see what happens. And what happened today? Well, a pretty poor Milan managed to pull off a somewhat last-minute winner through Tammy Abraham, jumping in the Champions League standings from 16th place to 12th spot, getting closer to that top 8 finish. Mathematically, just 1 point behind 3rd place. And how this team really played, well, we'll break that down in today's 4 takeaways. You guys know how this works. Green boxes for good performances, red boxes for bad ones. But let's kick things off with the first takeaway from today's match. Let's start off a little bit happier. Give a green box to one of the goal scorers in Tammy Abraham. Now, Alvaro Morata picked up an early injury in today's match. It sort of forced Tammy Abraham to make an appearance around the 30th minute. And he actually really didn't disappoint. Very quickly, within, I think, his first shot of the match today was a header that was just a little bit off target. Actually, it did hit the target. It was supposed to be a corner kick that the referee didn't actually give. And soon after that, Milan picked up a free kick in a really good spot. I mean, that was one of the things that I was criticizing about this team, that, you know, that's one department that Milan really doesn't excel in, which is taking free kicks, especially from that distance. Tammy took a really solid free kick. It was just, you know, maybe not the most well placed, but when it came to power, the bend on that free kick, if it was just placed right, that would have been a superb goal from Tammy. So the initial signs, the early signs from Tammy, they were pretty solid. I think the part about Tammy that a lot of us are going to be, you know, we're probably screaming at the screen, demanding why he didn't score a goal, happened in the second half, around 53 minutes and 15 seconds. It was a beautiful cross that came in from Davide Calabria. It was set perfectly for Tammy to be able to control that and just hit it into a wide open net. He hit it right at a defender who was, you know, in an awkward spot right in front of him. The game probably should have been finished right then and there by Tammy. Would have been a 2-0 scoreline for Milan. He missed that, but in the 87th minute, he found himself in the right position. Chukwueze, Samuel with space. Samuel. Camarda! Oh, Tammy! Oh, thank God. Nice work, Tammy. Let's go, boys. Up until now, Milan have gotten 4 goals out of this player, 2 assists, 6 goal contributions. I think for a lively performance and the match winner, the guy deserves a green box. And the first shout out from today's match, let's just give the shout out to the player that actually really helped create that Tammy Abraham goal. A guy who's just teetering on scoring that Champions League goal. Even today, he struck the crossbar in Francesco Camarda. It was truly him who was consequential in helping create that goal for Milan. He forced the goalkeeper to make that stop, parried it away, struck the crossbar, fell to Tammy, and he got the ball in the back of the net. Today's chance created by Francesco, and in the match against Calabria, I think both the chances were created with his back to the goal and a glancing, looping header over everybody. So for helping set up that goal, Francesco Camarda gets his first ever shout out on this channel. And the first call out from today's match, well, this one has to go out to Reijnders Missing, and it's pretty simple. It's for that mistake that he made. If he had just held on to the ball a little bit better, protected the ball a little bit better, there's a good chance that Milan wouldn't have given up that possession there, you know, caught themselves with more bodies committed up front, a lot more space available to Radonjic to be able to get that shot. Maybe you can say that one of the players should have closed him down, but it was just a really good strike, and not too much that Mike Maignan could have done about that, but really it started from Reijnders Missing losing possession, and this is a critique that we've had of him not the first time. Sometimes he just finds himself in silly spots. So many times when it comes off, it looks really nice, where he's running towards Milan's goal. There's a player, an opposition player that is on him. You know, he gets the ball away and then he runs in the other direction towards the opposition's goal. And, you know, he has a lot more space available to him. That happens pretty often and it looks good. But when it doesn't come off and you lose possession and then it ends up being a goal for the other side and the entire match sort of, you know, falls out of balance, you have to be called out for a mistake like that. And the next takeaway from today's match, unfortunately, this one has to be a red box, and it has to go out to a player that has been sublime for him, especially in the Champions League, has scored in consistent games, has to go out to Reijnders. The fact is that in a match like today, when you're playing at home, you're playing, you know, not one of the strong sides in the league, you need your players like this. You need a Reijnders to be really delivering something creative from the midfield. That pass that even, you know, Rafa Leão ended up scoring off of, that didn't come from Reijnders, the more creative midfielder. That came from the guy who's supposed to be more of the defensive midfielder in Musah Fofana. The fact with Reijnders is that in a stretch of about 8 matches, he scored 5 goals, including a brace, including a goal against Real Madrid in the Champions League. He also assisted a goal. So in that 8-match span, you had some good stats coming in through Reijnders. He was actually a match winner for Milan. But then the last 2 matches, an important match against Atalanta, A Champions League game is almost always important, especially if we're playing at the San Siro. You need the growing profile, the new star player that Milan has in Reijnders to really step up and consistently keep showing that quality. He was fairly absent in the match against Atalanta. He was actually a ghost. And even today, you felt like Milan's creativity in the middle of the field didn't really come through Tejani. Around 14 minutes, 10 seconds, I specifically remember a corner kick that Milan took that Reijnders stepped up to. I mean, that was an absolute disaster. The way that possession was given away by Milan, that was schoolboy error, really embarrassing. And you know, when you have these important games, you need better from your star players like Reijnders, and for that reason, he has to be put in the red box. The next shout out from today's game, once again, this has to go out to the center back pairing of Matteo Gabbia and Malik Thiaw. I think this has been one of the most consistent pairings this season on the channel that has gotten a shout out or gotten a green box. And today's no different. Yes, Milan is conceding goals even in the games that they're playing, but more often than not, you'll get the sense that it's actually not due to individual errors or, you know, poor mistakes made by these two guys. They've actually been consistently good performers. On that goal that Milan conceded, you know, a lot of blame has to fall with Musah for losing possession. Milan was actually preparing to potentially move forward and start an attack. And it's just sometimes it's just one of those goals that you tip your hat to and give respect for. Oh, they're saying you got the ball. Oh, you gotta use a teammate there. Oh, what a goal. That's what it was. Milan switched off for so long. And this was the guy who looked the most dangerous. Could you say that one of the center backs should have maybe closed down one of the left center backs? I think it may have been Matteo Gabbia at that point in time who could have closed down Radonjic. Sure, you can make that case, but overall, you got the sense they had a pretty solid performance. And there's one moment that I specifically picked out, 15 minutes and 45 seconds, sometime around then. Just look at the movement of Matteo Gabbia. He was trying to catch one of the Crvena Zvezda players offside. You see a similar moment happen with somebody like Fikret Tomori and Pavlovic. It is very different movement from the center backs. Just the way that Gabbia caught him offside by constantly seeing where Malik Thiaw was moving. He was sort of just adjusting himself based on how Malik Thiaw was moving. And honestly, I just took note of that. He caught the player in an offside position and nothing really came out of it. But you notice those things with Matteo Gabbia. It is a little bit strange, but I think it is fair to say that at this point in time on this Milan team, Gabbia is arguably the best center back that Milan has. And for sure, that contract renewal till 2029, that's a really handy thing for Milan. And even with Malik Thiaw, I think it has to be pointed out, his performance last season, you know, I've talked about on the channel multiple times, wasn't the strongest, but you almost sometimes get the sense that he had to go through that weak phase. He had to go through having the freedom of making those mistakes, learning from them, because he seems like he's becoming much more solid center back. Now, Milan, as the coach already said, is a game-to-game team. We're going to have to see what happens in the next match when these guys play. But what we've seen from them in the recent past, what we saw from them today, it's definitely worthy of a shout out. The next shout out might be a little bit more controversial. I'm gonna actually give this to Davide Calabria. I thought his performance today was pretty good. He definitely looked a lot better than one of the first matches that he played after a long time out. That's for sure. He looked better today. In the beginning of the season, we complained a lot of the times that, you know, too many attacks from the opposition were coming from Milan's right flank. They still are, especially when Emerson Royal is playing, but he got the sense that Calabria was much more stable defensively. The way that I talked about Matteo Gabbia's positioning, I felt like Calabria's positioning was also pretty good. And he also helped out fairly well in attack. At times playing that inverted role, sometimes he would drift more out wide. And he was the one who crossed that ball in for Tammy Abraham, who, as we already talked about, should have scored from that. Calabria could have had an assist. I do wonder if that adjustment made by the coach of putting Yunus Musah up front, he had to change his position after the Loftus-Cheek injury, but Musah playing up front on the right flank. And when Milan is getting attacked on, when Milan's defending, he drops back and becomes, turns Milan's backline into almost a 3 center back formation, and Musah is actually playing as a right flank player. I wonder if that additional coverage has offered that stability to Milan's right flank, but even Calabria for his individual performance today, I think was pretty good. Now, one piece of news that we do need to address is, it was being reported after the match that Calabria, after he was substituted, he went around the technical area, did not greet the coach, did not, high five him after coming off. It's being said that Fonseca was actually chasing Calabria, but Calabria sort of ignored him. Now, did that happen on purpose? Was it, a confusing moment where Calabria was trying to do something else and it seemed like he was ignoring the coach? We don't fully know yet. It just happened. But these are the things, these are the fractures. When a team has them, you're not really winning titles. You're not really winning trophies. When you have tension between your club captain and your coach, you're you're not really going to be getting too much success that season. So the hope is, the news is early. Let's just hope everything's fine. But the fact that Calabria till now has not been offered a renewal, he's in his final year, he's mostly being played behind Emerson Royal, it's not much of a surprise that he's not really getting along well with Paulo Fonseca. And the next takeaway from today's match is going to be a red box that goes out to the player who's usually the club captain in the absence of Calabria, and Theo Hernandez. Look, the fact is, it's been a pretty weak season for Theo Hernandez, and his performance today was also fairly toothless. No question that it has been his worst season ever at Milan. Now, just like in the beginning of the season, we talked about how, Rafa Leão is a little bit slow to sort of build into the season. He doesn't hit the ground running from game one. We've at times noticed this with Theo too. You get better performances from him in the second half of the season. Let's hope that happens. But I think an uncomfortable conversation might need to be had. At this point in time, I'm starting to get the sense that this might be Theo Hernandez's last season at Milan. Now, there have been some reports that he might leave in January. I don't think there's any possibility of that happening. You get the best price for a player most of the times in the summer transfer window. Next year, 2025-26, I believe will be Theo Hernandez's final contract year. So next summer window will be his final window if a renewal is not agreed upon. So we kind of have to wait and see what happens, but I'm getting the sense that there's something up with Theo. Now, I know there's news floating around about some, off the field stuff. I don't feel very comfortable talking about it on the channel until it's actually confirmed. I feel like it would be improper, irresponsible really on my part to discuss that. But something with Theo, with this Milan team and the infrastructure seems off. Now, Krunic came out and said that once Paolo Maldini left and Ibrahimovic left and, Masada left, he just felt a disconnect from the management. I'm not sure if the same thing is happening with Theo. It's totally possible. But you have to see, he hasn't really been playing well. And with this, off the field stuff about him leaving the club and this being his final year, it doesn't really help. But for his performance today, the guy has to be put in a red box. The next shout out from today's match, this one has to go to the player who assisted another goal for Rafa Leão in Musah Fofana. Now, a few videos ago, maybe even in the last video possibly, I talked about, are we seeing a new tandem sort of develop? We might have a new tandem now with Musah Fofana and Rafa Leão because they've scored very similar goals in consistent matches now. In his first season at Milan, Mike Maignan used to, make these kinds of passes for Leão that would end up in a really solid attack, either a goal for Leão and an assist for Maignan, or something would happen from that, that long cross for Mike. Recently, this season, today, I think is the third goal that Musah Fofana has assisted for Rafa Leão in a fairly similar manner. Aerial ball or cutting through the middle, Leão making that run, finding himself 1v1 against the goalkeeper and scoring a goal. And that is sort of what happened today. So from an attacking standpoint, he got an assist for Leao's goal, but even from a defensive standpoint, I think it was around 47 minutes and 13 seconds, the way that he intercepted that pass, for Red Star Belgrade and started turning into a Milan attack. And even a little bit later, around 57 minutes in the second half, the way that he defensively forced that Crvena Zvezda player, he was perfectly holding on to possession, making a run towards Milan's goal, but just every step that he took, Fofana just kept pushing him out towards the benches, kept pushing him out towards, out of the touchline. Eventually, the player just himself lost the ball. And using his strength to be able to dispossess players, pickpocket them at times or force them off the field, that's exactly the element that Milan has been missing for a long time. But the fact that he helped out from a defensive standpoint and helped out in, picking up an assist for that goal, it could even be a green box performance from Fofana today. The next takeaway from today's match has to be a green box, goes out to the goal scorer in Rafa Leão. I think sometimes it just pays to have faith in your players. A bunch of videos ago, I put out a little clip where I talked about how we need to support Rafa Leão the way that he supported Charles de Ketelaere. Now, 8 matches, 5 goals, 2 assists, 7 goal contributions in the past month. Another stat from Squawka, that's what it is. The only Milan player in major European competitions to have more than 10 goal contributions since the beginning of the 2023-24 season. That's what this guy could do. And a lot of us were just forcefully losing faith in him. And even today, if you look at his performance, I'll be very honest, it wasn't actually necessarily the best performance, but he stepped up when it mattered. Calabria goes back to Fofana through the middle. Oof, usually that's that Fofana ball to Rafa Leão. Leão! It's that same tandem. I've talked about it before. It's that Fofana-Leão tandem. Once again, he got an opportunity to score a goal. It was not an easy goal to score. That cross from Fofana was about 25 to 30% of the job. That control from Leao was another 30% of the job, that first touch that he made. And that strike from that angle with two defenders on him and the goalkeeper closing him down, that was the remaining 40% of the job. So it was an impressive goal scored from Leao. You can obviously have the complaint that in the second half he was much less involved and you need him to be more involved. But I think there's just something about Leao because of Paulo Fonseca that is starting to shift a little bit. Specifically at one point in time, 36 minutes, 10 seconds. There was an attack that Leao was involved in. Go watch the replay. He tries to drive the ball into Red Star Belgrade's box. He gets driven far wide outside of the box, loses possession and falls onto the ground. Then Crvena Zvezda turns around and starts attacking Milan. And you can see on the corner of your screen, Leao is just fixing his socks because that's what he used to do. But suddenly something like clicked in him and he was trying to fix his sock and then he just got up and started running backwards because I think there's a mental shift that has been implemented by Paulo Fonseca where you have to keep helping your team at all times. You can't just detach yourself and say, well, it's defense now, so you guys handle it. I'm just going to fix my socks over here. Obviously, that mindset change, if it really didn't exist with Leao, is going to take some time to come about because of the coach. But you could see in that split-second moment, Leao's like sitting there, okay, I'm going to fix my socks, and then something just clicks him, and he's like, okay, no, I actually have to go back and help out my team in defense. So I think those incremental improvements and the player finding his form from an attacking standpoint, I think that's good news for Milan. It's good news for the player because I think it's going to make him, want to be more involved from a defensive standpoint too. When he's scoring goals and he's assisting goals, that's when Rafa Leão is the happiest. And finally, we got to discuss the coach's comments because Paulo Fonseca came out guns blazing against his own players. He went on to say that, he comes in every day and tries to work his best for the team, adding that he didn't know if all the players in the squad could say the same. He was upset with Milan's performance, said that we came here to win and win properly, and he couldn't say if he actually got that done. And then making that case for this team's performances about being a roller coaster and likening them to a coin toss. You just flip the coin and wait to see what happens. But it's very evident with this team. Something is clearly fractured inside. With the relationship between the captain and the coach, with Theo Hernandez being completely off form, rumors coming out about him leaving, one could assume that next summer transfer window, this Milan team could be really different from what it is today. We don't know who's going to be here. We don't know who's going to leave, but things are clearly not working out. I think quotes like this from the coach and some conflicts that we're seeing happening within the players completely eliminates the possibility of winning trophies. In my opinion, teams that have fractures internally rarely ever win any type of titles. But on the flip side, maybe you could say that Paulo Fonseca is doing one of two things. Either he's really tried with this team, he's tried all tactics possible, and now he feels like to really light that fire under them, he needs to go out publicly and be a little bit more critical of his squad. He didn't single out players, he simply said that not everybody can say that they're doing enough to perform well for this team. The other possibility could be Paulo Fonseca simply trying to shift blame. He's not fully in control of the squad. He's not getting what he thought he might be able to get from the team. He's not getting what the management maybe thought that Paulo Fonseca is going to be able to get from this team. And now he's trying to find excuses. In the last match, it was, it's the referee's error in that Atalanta match that resulted in Milan, conceding a goal. And now in today's match, the players are just not performing well enough. He's not wrong when he says that this team's a roller coaster because I just said that in the last video. But coming out and publicly criticizing his team, that's, one of the fastest ways to alienate your own players. Now, you guys let me know in the comment section. Remarks like that from the coach, is it an attempt to get that fire lit under his players? Is he trying to make an excuse? And do you think a team that has fractures like this, where the coach is coming out publicly and criticizing his players, can win any trophy in this season? The fact of the matter at the end of the day is, some wins have to be scrappy. Milan picked up the 3 points. They're now 1 point behind third place in the Champions League standings. And from my side, as always, Forza Milan. Grazie mille. Ciao tutti. This is style of play and the scandals. Oh, the scandals, including a bizarre locker room incident where a player essentially drugged his own teammates. And we'll look at how lowering Serie A from 20 teams to 18 teams might be the